One interesting thing about studying the history of philosophy is you get to see these really cool mashups of areas of inquiry that typically are treated separately today. So for example, in a work called The Meditations, a 17th century French philosopher named René Descartes argues that we can prove the existence of God, show that God is not a deceiver, and therefore I can rely on my rational faculties to discover truths about the physical world around me. And this physical world is best described and understood and explained using the language of mathematics. And so within a few short pages, he's connected theology, metaphysics and epistemology, physics, and mathematics. There's some positions which are taken for granted in much contemporary academic and public discourse, so that it can be difficult to imagine how people of the past could have thought otherwise unless they were fools or moral monsters. So for example, slavery is wrong. It's hard to understand how someone of the past could have believed otherwise. But sometimes it can be satisfyingly surprising to turn to historical works and see what they actually said. So for instance, there's an antebellum author from the United States named George Fitzhugh, who in a work called Slavery Justified argues that what he calls free competition, or what we would probably call capitalism, that free competitive societies are full of sort of internecine conflict between workers that are sort of jostling for the same position, between employers, and of course between employers and workers. And so you have this kind of fractious, really conflict-ridden society. And of course he thinks that a slave society is preferable to that, and we might disagree with that part of his argument, while nevertheless being able to see some actual kind of legitimate criticisms lying within the framework that he develops as a whole. People sometimes talk about an idea being ahead of its time, where someone makes a proposal that is ignored or rejected outright by their contemporaries, and it's not until much later that this proposal is shown to be quite fruitful and is able to be developed. An example of this might be an ancient Greek philosopher named Aristarchus, who argued that the sun and not the earth was the center of the solar system. And it wasn't until hundreds of years later that this proposal was taken up and shown to be very fruitful by Copernicus.